Beneath a hill in central China, there is a tomb so dangerous that no one has opened it in over 2,000 years. We know it's there, we've mapped it. We know it may hold rivers of liquid mercury and traps built to kill anyone who dares to step inside. And still, we won't go in. The man who built it was the most powerful person on Earth. He had conquered everything. He feared no army, and yet he was terrified. Not of enemies, not of war, of dying. To guard his body forever, he built an underground palace the size of a city, and he filled it with an army, 8,000 life-size soldiers made of clay. And that is only the part we are allowed to see. The tomb itself, where he actually lies, that remains sealed. This is the story of the man who was so afraid to die that his fear may have been the very thing that killed him. His name was Yingzheng, and his beginning did not promise greatness. He was born into a China that did not yet exist, not as one country, but as 7 kingdoms locked in centuries of brutal war. They called it the Warring States period, and it was exactly as bloody as it sounds. Zheng became king of the state of Qin when he was just 13 years old, a boy on a throne in the most dangerous political area on Earth. But this boy was different, cold, brilliant, relentless. As he grew, he did something no one in 500 years had managed. One by one, he conquered them all. By 221 BC, the 7 kingdoms were won, and Yingzheng gave himself a brand new title, one that no one had ever used before. Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. And here's the part that gets lost in the legend. He was genuinely one of the most effective rulers who ever lived. He took 7 kingdoms that wrote differently, traded differently, even measured the world differently, and forced them into one. One writing system, one currency, one set of weights and measures, one China. He connected the walls of the old kingdoms into a single great barrier against the north, the ancestor of what we now call the Great Wall of China. It was built at a staggering human cost. Countless laborers died raising it. But the man did not care about cost. He cared about permanence. He wanted to build things that would last forever. Forever. That word, that idea, was about to become his obsession and his undoing. Qin Shi Huang had everything a human being could want. Absolute power, a unified empire, wealth beyond counting, and slowly, a terrible realization crept in. None of it could save him from the one enemy he could not conquer. He had survived assassination attempts, more than one. A musician once tried to kill him with a lead-weighted instrument. A scholar hurled a heavy cone at his carriage. Each near miss left him more paranoid and more aware of how fragile even an emperor's body is. He began to sleep in a different room every night, so no one would know where to find him. He built covered walkways between his palaces so he could move unseen. He was the most powerful man alive, and he was living in fear. But hiding from an assassin is one thing. Hiding from death itself? For that, he would need something more. And so the first emperor declared war on himself. And like everything else he did, he went further than anyone before him. He summoned alchemists, healers, and mystics from across the empire and gave them a single command. Find the secret to eternal life. Find the elixir of immortality. And do not fail me. He sent expeditions to the far corners of the world. The most famous was led by a court sorcerer named Shu Fu, who sailed east with a fleet of ships, and by legend, thousands of young men and women, searching for a mythical mountain island where immortals were said to live. Shu Fu sailed away and never came back. Some legends say he found the island. Others say he knew there was no elixir and simply kept sailing to escape an emperor who executed those who disappointed him. Either way, no cure came home. But the emperor would not give up. If the elixir would not come to him from across the sea, then his alchemists would make it in the lab. And that's where the story turns dark. To create a pill of immortality, the emperor's alchemists reached for the most impressive substances they knew. Things that seemed magical, things that shimmered and never rusted and never decayed, things like mercury. To them, it made perfect sense. Mercury is a liquid metal that flows like water but shines like silver. It seemed alive, eternal, incorruptible. Surely something that never decayed could stop a body from decaying too. They were catastrophically wrong. Mercury is one of the most toxic substances on Earth. It attacks the brain, the nervous system. It causes tremors, paranoia, hallucinations, madness, and death. And the first emperor of China was swallowing it in pill after pill, day after day, convinced each dose was bringing him closer to living forever. It was slowly killing him. As the poison built up in his body, his behavior grew stranger, more paranoid, more erratic. The very madness the mercury caused, he may have blamed it on enemies, on plots, on anything but the shimmering cure he trusted. He was trying so hard not to die that he was poisoning himself to death, and he never even knew it. In 210 BC, on a grand tour of his empire, likely still swallowing his poison pills, Qin Shi Huang died. He was 49 years old. The man who spent a fortune to live forever got no more time than any ordinary person. And then the story becomes almost unbelievable, because his death happened far from the capital and his ministers panicked. If word got out that the emperor was dead, rivals might seize power before his chosen heir could take the throne. So his closest officials decided to hide it. They pretended he was still alive. For weeks they carried on the tour with his body concealed in his carriage, delivering meals to it, filing reports to it as though nothing had happened. But it was summer, and a body does not keep. So according to the histories, his chief minister, a man named Li Shi, had a cart loaded with salted fish and driven alongside the emperor's carriage. The overpowering stench of rotting fish would hide the smell of the decaying emperor long enough to get his body home. The most powerful man in the world massed by a cartload of fish. And so we return at last to the tomb, because Qin Shi Huang had been preparing for his death since almost the moment he took the throne, even as he insisted he would never die. For over 30 years, hundreds of thousands of workers labored to bring him an underground empire, a palace to rule from in the afterlife. And to protect it, he commissioned a vast army of clay, each soldier with a unique face, ready to guard their emperor for eternity. Ancient records describe the tomb's inner chamber in astonishing terms, a map of his entire empire laid out below the earth, and its rivers and seas recreated in flowing liquid mercury made to move mechanically, forever. For centuries, historians thought this might be an exaggeration, a myth perhaps, until modern scientists tested the soil above the tomb and found the mercury levels were off the charts, exactly where the ancient texts said the rivers would be. Which brings us to the reason the tomb is still sealed today. It isn't superstition, it's science. The mercury alone could be lethal. The ancient booby traps, crossbows rigged to fire on intruders, may or may not still work. And archaeologists know that opening it wrong could destroy everything inside before we ever understand it. So it waits. A 2,000-year-old palace of the dead guarded by rivers of poison, holding the body of the man who built it all to cheat death, and who cheated nothing. Here's what stays with me about Qin Shi Huang. He was, by any measure, a giant. He built a country that still exists today. He gave China its name, his wall still stands, his clay army still guards him. By almost any definition, he did achieve a kind of immortality. Just not the kind he wanted. He was so desperate to keep his one fragile life that he poisoned it anyway, chasing a forever that no pill could ever buy. And the great irony is that if he had simply let go of that fear, he might have lived longer and ruled better than he ever did. We remember him for the wall and the army, but maybe the truest thing he left behind is a warning that the harder you clutch it forever, the faster the sand runs out. If you'd have turned down the poison pills, which let's hope you would, hit subscribe. There's a lot more history down here they never taught you in school. And tell me in the comments which ruler should we uncover next.